Hello there, Senators, and welcome back to Star Wars Democracy. We're going to be talking about the Acolyte season finale tonight. Got a lot to talk about. I have with me here Journeyman and Travis. As usual, guys, we have a lot to get into. I liked the episode, just to put it out there and just get it front and center right away. Journeyman, how did you feel about the episode?
I liked it.
Brief thoughts.
Brief thoughts. Sort of kind of how I thought it was gonna go, but different. Like some things I wasn't expecting.
Yeah. I think we may have lost Travis, but he'll be back in a little bit. Yeah, certainly there were some definite big twists in the episode that I was not expecting. There he is.
Yeah, audio.
Oh, well, we need you to be able to hear us. So what did you think about it, Travis?
Me?
What are your thoughts?
I really like that. We were talking a while ago, and I remember I literally said, wouldn't it be funny if this whole thing ended with like people having a conversation? And I'm like, nah, they wouldn't do that. And they kind of did. It ends well, people die, but I was not expecting like so much resolution to happen with people just standing on spot and talking. I actually kind of appreciated how slow and measured the finale was.
Yes, I agree with you.
You good?
He disappeared from all time and space with that.
I thought Darth Vader was threatening him.
Yeah, he's like,
yeah. I'm just getting forced. Darth Vader. Holy crap! I cannot speak tonight.
Oh my goodness, we're losing it already. We're only 3 minutes in. No, that was a really good point, Travis. One thing, and I don't know if you guys felt this way at all. It might be a terrible comparison, but it felt very in the same way that Revenge of the Sith ends very sad. It's a tragedy, but also kind of evoked like you could see where all the kind of like the plot lines you have, Vader. Well, Journeyman has, I don't know if that, I think that might be from the originals, but you have that scene where Vader's with Palpatine, Vader's being put in the mask. You have the scene where Luke or Obi-Wan is giving Luke to his family and Leia to the Organas, and it just seems like it kind of just sums and ties everything up in a really kind of nice way, while also giving a nice springboard into what we know comes in the original trilogy. And I think even though obviously, this is a little bit different, but it kind of had that. I was worried about how it was going to tie everything up, and we'll get into all of that. But I think it tied some things up really nicely, and the things that it didn't tie up, it left it in a very satisfying yet open-ended way to where we could get some cool stuff in the future potentially. So we have On Program here. What's up, On Program? Thank you for being here. What up, boys? We're going to be we got a lot to talk about. I'm glad to have you here, Eddie. This is going to be a fun stream, I think. We got a lot to get into, a lot of speculation, I think, that we could even bring up in this as well. And that's what I love, right? We know we had speculation last week. We had a lot of good talk in our last live stream. And one thing that I always love that Star Wars does is when it opens up the possibility to speculate. So I don't even know where to begin.
What's next to me? What's that? That looks like a pig's nose. I actually can't tell what that is.
That is a blurred out image of what we suspect to be our Sith Lord. I didn't want to throw it on the thumbnail and spoil it right away, but
yep.
I think that's like the big elephant in the room that we need to talk about.
Okay, let's talk about the elephant in the room. On Program, Eddie says, I was so happy for you getting your mun. No biff, so I guess we were both a little right. Yeah, you were the first person that I thought of. I was like, I got him. Because Eddie was like, "There's no way they'll do that." Granted, he did say that they wouldn't bring a Bith on screen, and so I suppose you're right. Maybe a moon is right there in the middle. Did you guys? Let's just leave Eddie's comment on here. Legends lives. Did you all suspect that we were actually going to get that?
Darth Plagueis?
Yes.
Oh, first off, I think instead of elephant in the room, I think the Max Rebo in the room is more appropriate. But when no, the second I saw the hand, I was like, no. And then they did it. And then my heart soared. I was because as I was watching the episode, I knew this might be the last time we see this planet, and we were talking about that it could be, what was the planet name with do you remember that? I think you had it in your notes.
Oh gosh, I did have it in my notes. Let me see. Keep theorizing. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick.
I was thinking whether or not they were that big in the last episode, and so no, I was not expecting that. But it does clearly seem like there's more to this story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I thought it was interesting how they threw him in not even midway into the finale, and I was like, I didn't expect to get more.
I thought we were going to get more since it was that early. But
no,
my reaction was to the whole thing was, okay, we know this is the Sith Lord that we're talking about. I was so confused of who it was. I'm like, that doesn't look like Tenebris. Is that Plagueis? I've never seen necessarily his kind, I guess, or from my recollection. I'm like, I don't know what Plagueis looks like. And so after the
Can you hear him?
Let me see. Yeah, I can hear you, Journeyman. Can you hear him, Travis?
No, he's frozen on my screen.
Oh.
Is he frozen?
Are you frozen? No, you're not frozen.
No.
Is he still frozen on your screen?
He's doing this. That's what it looks.
No, he's not frozen on my screen. Maybe
You want me to log off and log back in?
Here, maybe let me remove you both. There we go. Is everybody unfrozen now? Are we all good?
Yeah, he's frozen. Yeah, he's frozen. I guess it's fine.
Yeah, well, Eddie said he's in and out for me. Canadian said Journeyman was fine on her end. Maybe just
maybe it's a regional thing.
Come back.
Yeah, maybe close out of the if you want to. Okay, Journeyman just left. Maybe try closing out of it, Travis, and coming back in. We'll see if everybody's back. I was trying to find the name of that planet while everybody's sorting things out. Let's see. We got Journeyman back. Let me see. Is everybody back? Back and better than ever?
Yeah.
Not frozen. He was standing really still.
Okay. There we go. Okay, I think everybody's back. I'm still trying to find that darn planet's name. Why can't I think of it?
As I was saying, my reaction to the thing was like, I've never seen necessarily Plagueis before, or his kind, from my recollection. So I'm like, when the hand comes out and he's still kind of in the shadows, I'm like, I'm confused. I have no clue who this is. Like, is that Plagueis? Is that some new character that they decided to throw in for whatever reason? And so,
we do see him. We do see his species in the Attack of the Clones, episode 2. So not completely foreign, but yeah, it was still a surprise.
I don't remember it.
Canadian Freedom says Baldimnik, which glad to have you here, Canadian Freedom. Thank you for being here. So Baldimnik was that name from Legends. So yeah, he kind of just pops up, literally, like we were saying, right before episode, like the midway point of the episode, maybe not even 25% in. And yeah, he's just there. Now, I think the question that we need to talk about is, what do we think that his relationship is to Chimere or the Stranger? Do we think that this is his master? Do you think it kind of looked like he was being a little bit sneaky, like he's just kind of having a watchful eye on them, but doesn't necessarily have any direct involvement with the Stranger or his plans? So what do you guys think about that?
So my question to that was he doing to what Chimere was doing in this show, is kind of like not being the present force to Chimere, like being known in everything, like maybe like hollow screen or something, but it's just like blacked out or something, like something of that nature, just like he knows about him or gets his message from him, but he doesn't like interact with him. And so that's kind of what I was thinking. But the other thing was like he was that deep into his cave, like he was there in the cave. So in that case, it's like he's got to know something, right?
Yeah, he was there. It's Canadian Freedom says maybe he found them or is wondering why he has an apprentice.
That could be true, because at some point you're gonna have to at least. We know Plagueis he doesn't die until Palpatine kills him, right?
Right.
So you would think that at least this might be his first apprentice or something of that nature that we don't know of, and there may be an attempt to try to kill him and overthrow him this time, but we know where that leads.
Yeah.
So
yeah. There we go. You hear us okay, Travis? Can you hear us okay?
Yeah, this is bad.
Maybe the audio's I don't know if Travis's audio is working. We could hear him. I don't know if he can hear us. Yeah, I'd like the idea of him having an apprentice and not like Plagueis having an apprentice and kind of like spying on Chimere and the Stranger, like what is he up to with my apprentice? Because the whole Bane, like a Baneite Sith, the trope is that the apprentice kills the master. So he's probably like, what's going on here? He's keeping up on tabs and stuff. But yeah, I thought that was a nice little addition. I thought that it was again cool that they put him in so early, and then like I was like maybe they'll bring him in, but I was like, it seems like they're leaving this planet and they're just gonna tease him for. Well, I guess we did see the planet at the end of the episode, hence the thumbnail in the background. And so I think that it sets up some interesting things moving forward. Let's see what else we got here. What else do we want to talk about? Should we talk about the other thing on the thumbnail? How did you feel about the bleeding of the crystal? Did you think that was
cool to see? It was cool to see. I think they picked the right show, but at the same time, I kind of felt like we were slighted a little bit, just through my personal opinion. This is just my own opinion, because I felt like us seeing a crystal bleed would have been like, we kind of see it in comics. We watch the theory thing, of course, the whole Vader series, the comics, and like that's kind of what I wanted to see, of like Vader doing it first, and so we can kind of have like a really shock and awe factor. But the fact that they kind of did it in the show, I'm like, don't get me wrong, it's a cool moment. But at the same time, I'm like, this is the show they put it in. Like, I was kind of hoping for something, another show to do it, I guess.
Yeah.
That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, I was shocked. I think I was more shocked to see that than I was Plagueis, to be honest. I was like, wow, they're really going all out at this point.
It did look cool though. It looked cool as
It
heck.
was so cool. If there was ever a show to do, I mean, for the show to go all out on so many things, and I mean, we have Yoda at the end of this too. Not a lot to talk about there, I suppose, but we have Yoda at the end, and you know, the bleeding of the lightsaber crystal, the fact that the apprentice kills the master. Osha literally kills Soul. You have Plagueis.
Yeah.
You have all of these things. I don't know how you could be disappointed in this this episode. You may have problems with certain aspects of the series, but this episode was, in my opinion, a 10 out of 10. For me, I give it a 10 out of 10. I put it right up there with the end of The Mandalorian season 2. Maybe not quite a 10 out of 10. And Travis gave us a $5 super chat. Thank you so much, Travis. He said, apologize, everyone. I think the storm we just had slowed the internet, so I'll just chill in the chat. Hey, no worries, buddy. I'm glad that you're at least chilling with us in the chat. And if things get better with the storm, hop back in and it's okay. We can troubleshoot on stream. It's not a problem at all. I really appreciate you though, buddy. Let's see. On program said true. That was much more unexpected and shocking than Plagueis. Yeah, I think so. I was much more surprised to see that than I was Plagueis. How did you feel about what would you give the show out of 10, Journeyman?
Oh, the show overall or the episode?
Episode. Did I say show?
I don't know. I'm just asking just to clarify. There was not really anything wrong that I thought was necessarily bad. Probably like 9. I can't really give it full 10. It wasn't like the only 10 factor that made it a 10 was, and I didn't know they were even going to go there, but was the Yoda thing at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd probably say like 9.
Okay.
Probably my overall thoughts, but then the Yoda thing kind of brings, like, the Yoda thing in and of itself is like a 10 because that explains so much.
I have to admit, I don't know if I can give it a 10 out of 10. That's like a perfect score.
Yeah, no,
I certainly think there's certain things that didn't work well for me. I'd give it a 9.5 out of 10. There you go. I'd give it a 9.5 out of 10. Gosh, there's just so much to get into. The bleeding of the crystal. One of the things I found interesting is, and I'd be curious what you all think in the chat. The fact that Osha, and I know the answer to this, I think, but the fact that Osha kills her master, in the process of killing her master, that's when her crystal starts to bleed. Did anyone else in that moment? This is where my mind went. It's a little bit of a critique, but my mind in that moment went to, wow, you know, if this is really happening right now. She's in the middle of killing her master. We can see the crystal starting to bleed. Why did they make, again, and I know the answer to this, but it kind of was weird to me that can bleed a crystal, but Anakin in Revenge of the Siths remain blue, because we see him do so many horrific things with, I mean, slaughtering the Jedi, the younglings, Padme, and then the hatred he feels for Obi-Wan at the very end there. I was like, why was his, why, you know, and I the reason is because I believe George Lucas said that the red lightsaber against the lava on Mustafar did not go very well just visually, and that's why they kept the blue in there. But
Sure,
gosh,
but I think for story purposes, if we're just trying to get into George Lucas's head, and like saying, okay, the red doesn't work for the lava, if you want to try and do it canon wise, it
mm-hmm,
doesn't necessarily symbolize the actual end of Anakin until he puts on the Vader suit, which
mm-hmm,
story wise makes it like a whole, like more holistic thing of like that is the actual end because we hear the music, everything that goes on. It's like a pretty defining moment for
mm-hmm.
Star Wars, and so that's what I think.
Yeah,
If we're going off of kind of storyboards and all that kind of,
yeah. I don't know. It seemed kind of odd. That's where my mind went. I was like, wow, it would have been really cool to see Anakin's lightsaber do this.
I kind of thought, and then that was kind of my prediction for this episode was like something's going to happen between the sisters where they switch places or something like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
And but when she was bleeding the crystal, I thought there was still a chance because you still saw at the end of the lightsaber like a little bit of blue in there, and so that to me like symbolized like she was still trying to fight it even at the very end, but she just kind of gave in.
Mm-hmm.
But even still now at the end of the episode, I'm like, I don't I don't fully think that she actually gave in all the way. Like the performance was great, but to me, watching that, I'm not saying it's Anakin or anything, but I'm like, I don't. It wasn't there for me where I'm like, she fully committed everything, at least in my opinion, because she still has. I don't know. She still has like goodness in her, you know. Like I never felt like the love or anything like go away, other
Mm-hmm.
than killing her master, which I think, speaking on that a little bit, he knew the truth was out at that point. And he even says kind of at the end, like, it's okay. Like, he's basically owning up to it. And
Mm-hmm.
he's like accepting of the fate that she's going to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
So he
Mm-hmm.
basically does not self service, I guess, but like he does the justice that everyone thinks, or at least he thinks she really needs. And he's like, he could have probably fought her off, but he decides not to.
Yeah, he just accepts it. Yeah. Um. Yeah. I see that perspective. There's a couple things in the chat I wanted to point out. Um. Canadian Freedom says, agreed was okay. Would have been better with a more epic character in live action, perhaps. Would have been better if the crystal blood in the chamber and shot out fully red rather than split blue to red. Yeah, that kind of caught me off guard. I was like, oh, it's blue. And then like, oh no, it's red again. But I think it just goes to show that transformation. I think it, visually, it was just going to show that transformation and what it looks like to bleed a lightsaber red, which I think was really cool visually. And thank you for becoming a member again, Canadian Freedom. I really appreciate that. That reminds me, we're still pushing for 1,000 subscribers and trying to get up to 5 members. If you become a member, right now we're working on the story for this Jedi in my screen right here. If you become a member, you get voting rights as a senator of the channel to help me determine this character's story. The senators actually did vote and confirm the name, which I'll be sharing with everyone on the community tab tomorrow. So become a senator of the channel, a join member that is, and get access to all kinds of cool things, including helping me and getting to vote on the direction of this character story. So I would really appreciate it. Our goal is to get to 5 members. That's our push right now, and to 1,000 subscribers. So if you're new and listening to this, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Let's see here. Where are we at? Travis says this episode probably a 9 out of 10. I didn't want Soul to die and felt a few characters would have come back into play, but the payoffs and setups we got made up for it. Yeah, they certainly, I was expecting Soul to die. I did not really expect him to die in that way. And man, the cover up. Let me get through some more chats real quick, and then let's talk about the overall cover up that kind of gets tied up at the end of in this episode. Eddie says the episode is a 9 out of 10 for me. Fave is still episode 5. Yeah, episode 5 in terms of the choreography and the fighting. It's definitely hard to beat. Although I will say I really liked the fight sequence between Chimere or the stranger, whatever his name is, and Soul in this. I thought it was very well done. Had a lot of like Empire Strikes Back vibes. There was that one scene where Soul's like backing up and the stranger comes around the corner in that kind of like tunnel, or it reminded me of the Dagobah caves.
I also like Soul's dodging. Like, it feels like he was kind of playing a video game, like using the force kind of speed of like moving quickly out of the way, even though he hadn't landed yet. Like, I felt kind of video game-esque, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Yes.
I like this.
Yeah. Yeah, it was very cool. Eddie says, very efficient writing and the closed up a lot of things. Yeah, I think it was, I left the episode feeling a lot more satisfied than I thought I was going to, which is good considering I wasn't the biggest fan of episode 7 and I was a little bit nervous. So it's definitely a win in my opinion. On program says could be exposure of the crystal. Soul Saber was cracked, going back to the bleeding of the crystal. So, and then I think Travis kind of to tag along to that says I think Soul's crystal already suffered his own darkness, so it was already a little bit more vulnerable or susceptible to the bleeding, which is perhaps why it was so easy for Osha to do that, and that's certainly I think plausible. So Canadian Freedom says yeah, and Padme still senses the good, talking about Anakin, I suppose, and kind of what you were saying, Journeyman, of maybe why his crystal never actually bled. He says until he thinks she's dead. Osha shouldn't show more anger. Osha shouldn't show more anger. Osha shouldn't have shown more anger. Her face doesn't change much, unfortunately. You'll have to correct me if I'm wrong here, Canadian Freedom, but are you saying that she should have showed more anger? Because I agree. I think that there could have been a little bit more on the face. Yeah, there we go. It says should have shown more anger. And I think that at the end of the day, Amandla Stenberg, I believe that's her name. I think she did an okay job. I will say, as just a little bit of critique, one of my least favorite parts, I did not find the scenes between the two sisters to be very compelling. Perhaps it was because it's the same person and it's hard to interact with yourself. Kind of like D. Bradley Baker with the Bad Batch. It's like he's playing 5 different characters. He's just talking to himself the whole time. But
you walk past the room, he's just talking to himself.
That was one of the more least compelling parts that I found of the show. I'd be curious to know if anybody else felt the same way. Travis says the easy answer is the lightsaber bleeding didn't exist before episode 3, but it's also a ritual where the user deliberately does it. Yeah, that's also true. It didn't even exist. And like I said, I think it was even, I watched it recently. Someone was saying George didn't like the way a red lightsaber looked on Mustafar because it kind of blended in. And so visually it was a little bit tough. But it is what it is. So,
is there a version out there, by the way, that has a red lightsaber?
Yes, I believe someone has edited it and put it in, and it doesn't look bad, actually. I mean, I get the point, but I think it would have been what I always wanted to see was I was okay with him going when he's at the Jedi Temple and it's blue, but just as a surprise to fans, if we could see that like just light up red when he turns it on when he's about to fight Obi-Wan, I think would have been a really big surprise. But it's fine. I think that also the issue is, and I'm just thinking about this now, continuity-wise, I'm surprised nobody's yelled at me in the chat section. But continuity wise too, Luke has Anakin's saber, or Obi-Wan gives Luke Anakin's saber in the original trilogy, and it's blue. So I don't think unless the crystal was changed. But that seems difficult to explain. So
and then Luke would have been wise as red.
Yeah. There's a lot of reasons why it didn't happen, but I still think it'd be cool. Travis says Soul's crystal was cracked, and in the presence of a fallen Jedi, 2 dark side users, and a person about to turn dark on a planet full of death. Yeah, it was bound to happen. Emil says it would be interesting for Plagueis to occupy the Witch's Coven in order to create life and thus be able to create his own generations of Sith. One thing that I found interesting, and he was, we know from Palpatine that Plagueis was interested in using the midichlorians to create life. Well, now he has his means of doing that because he has a vessel there of someone who was created by the Force. And so he knows it's possible. And now we're likely going to see him try to do it himself. Now, one potential plot line that I think would be interesting is there seems to be a lot of emphasis on the part of Soul that in order to prove that there's a vergence on the planet and to really understand what was happening on the planet, you needed both May and Osha. And he says, you're the same person. You're not even sisters. You're the same person, which I think is really interesting.
My question at that point is dead or alive, or just they have to be near each other so they can do research or whatever, because he says with May gone, her dead, it didn't make any sense to tell you kind of this was his argument,
Yeah. I think that to go off of where the storyline could go, I think that we will see potentially if Plagueis involves himself somehow between Chimere and the Stranger and reveals himself, and this isn't necessarily him spying on them, like we're kind of talking about. I wonder if he's going to be like, you need to go get your sister and bring your sister here, because this is in order for me to understand the secret. I need both of you here, and maybe that could be. And I mean, Osha does say I'll come find you, but that would add a little bit more of a twist to it if, by going and finding her, she's really finding her to bring her back so that the Sith Lord can.
So story-wise, from where we know it leads into, right? It seems like Plagueis and Chimere seem like if they have a thing going, it's pretty master and apprentice right? And then Plagueis could just be using Osha and May as a tool. He's like, okay, you can go get, or he's like, maybe he doesn't even know that he's trying to been doing this, but now that he probably knows more, he's like, okay, I'll let this go on, but I'm just going to use her as a tool and just to get what I want. And then Chimere or whatever, they're going to probably fight. That's when the attempt's going to happen. But I think because it seems like they have a strong connection, Chimere and Osha now, and then it's going to be kind of like the Rey Kylo thing.
Yeah, potentially.
And then you have Snoke is you just wanting to use Rey as a tool, not even necessarily wanting her, just I'm just going to use you sort of way.
Yeah. Yeah, they definitely set some cool things up with that
storyline that I think they're going.
Yeah. I wanted to touch on just the Jedi a little bit too, because one of the things that they and Emil says it would be interesting for Plagueis to occupy the Witch's Coven. And okay, we already read that. I just want to make sure that I read that. One of the things that I think this show did and tried to show was that the Jedi are not necessarily inherently good. And I was curious on your perception of that and your thoughts on that. I think
Okay.
some people are finding this to be problematic, based off of their own opinion of
Sure.
like, the Jedi are supposed to be good. They're the good guys. They've always been the good guys. And now you're showing them as bad and evil. They ruined this girl's life and kind of paid the price for it. So my question for you and for the chat, senators in the chat here, how did you feel that the Jedi were portrayed? Do you like that we're getting to see a different side of them, or do you think it kind of goes against what they're, what we've known about them and kind of what George wanted to portray about them, if that question makes sense. Canadian Fetus has got a dart, getting up for work in a few hours, looking forward to more chats. May the force be with you. Thank you, Canadian Freedom. Appreciate you. May the force be with you as well.
So I'll do it in kind of eras of how I have watched Star Wars. So growing up, I think it was the goody two shoes, like Jedi are supposed to be the protectors of the good, and like supposed to see them in a positive light. As we've grown older and kind of more or less like teenager years, we started watching, I think, a little bit more Star Wars, and we started to see what me and you have discussed and what a lot of people have discussed of just like the looks that the Jedi give each other, Mace Windu and Yoda and all that. And like, you feel like there's something there, but you can never really prove it. Like, you're just like, that's a really great fan theory and all that. But deep down, I kind of knew like there was probably something going on. And so now that we're kind of at this point, I kind of really enjoy it because I feel like it gives, as much as people want to escape like the real world, and I do too, don't get me wrong, like reality is not great sometimes, but like I think it gives a more nuanced view of how the real world actually functions. Like, it's not just because and Jedi are the more good people. They are still more good than the Sith are. But I feel like they can still have some mess ups. They can still be on the wrong side of things sometimes. It doesn't mean that the institution or what they stood for is wrong. It's just there are always going to be some bad apples or something goes wrong within those institutions. But the point is here that you should be able to call it out and not be scared of that rather than cover it up, what they're doing. Like, they literally wasted 16 years or whatever covering this up, and it backfires on them. If they were probably just honest about the whole thing, yes, Soul may have gone to prison, but the situation probably would have been dealt a lot better than covering it up.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my whole take on it. Like,
one of that's a really good take. Not to get too political with it, just because I don't want to get into mainstream politics and things like that. But I will say one of who was it? Generation Tech, Alan with Generation Tech channel I watch, big Star Wars channel, pointed out that this was specifically after Episode 7, but the whole Brynjok tragedy was eerily similar to. Are you familiar with Waco, Texas, and the Branch Davidians?
Say it again. What? I don't think so. But say it again.
Familiar with Waco, Texas, and I think it was 1993 in the Branch Davidians.
Oh yeah, where the guy was held. And
yeah. So basically he was comparing. I don't know if that's what they were intending to do with this show, but he was drawing the parallels between that tragedy and the Brindok, where the Jedi were it was the federal government in the form of the ATF and the FBI coming into this compound of people who may or may, again, I don't want to get too much into it, but may or may not, they were just living their own life. Now their leader, David Koresh, there's some things about him and that again, I don't want to get into much into it, but the fact is that most of the people, if not all the people except him, were just trying to live their own life, had their own ideology and all of these things on this compound. The federal government comes in, something happens, and ends up being a firefight, and then you have that, negotiations that go on for several weeks, ultimately leading in a fire that kills everybody. Some people escape. And so he was comparing the Jedi to the federal government, and that exactly what you were saying, right? Like at the institution itself, while it may be good, most of the time there are still opportunities to be better. And the fact is you can come in with your power and kind of destroy people's lives if you're not careful with how you approach it. And so again, without getting too much into the weeds of that, that was an interesting parallel and helped kind of frame for me what they were trying to do with the Jedi in this show. Not necessarily trying to portray them as these evil people in the galaxy, but very much people who should be open to and willing having their power checked. And I think that was kind of a theme in this episode as well of Master Vernestra did not think that the Jedi needed their power checked, and that senator was like, listen, you guys, you have too much influence and too much power not to have some type of check or balance.
Yeah.
So,
and that's how the Jedi have always operated. Remember, like, I believe even in the Clone Wars, like, they just have this high brass or whatever about them where they like, this is a Jedi thing. Like, you don't necessarily need to be in here, sort of thing. Like, we can handle our own,
yeah.
And that kind of you see it extended all the way that way. Like you said, it's just another unchecked balance that they didn't want to do or possess, and so it's just, this is kind of what we get.
Yeah. Let me go to Travis first here. It says, in a weird way, Vernestra doesn't lie, rather she shows two different versions of the truth.
Yes, but that's the same thing that Soul did. Like, he
Yeah.
said, hey, you're doing, May killed your sister, but he also didn't say, like, I killed your mom. Like, he was basically doing the same thing. She's doing the exact same thing. Except she's probably going to tell Master Yoda instead, and he's going to be like, well, this is how we're going to handle it from now on. Which, that brings me to another point, even though I don't like it, because Yoda's so wise, it makes me question, because I still love Yoda, but what hand does he have in this now? Like, how...
Well, we don't necessarily know what she's going to tell him.
True, but we also don't know what advice he's going to give. But I'm just saying, like, just from what we know now, and then we could theorize on the conversation, but that kind of puts you at a question of, like, how should we all feel about Yoda at this point?
Yeah, you mean in terms of if he does know kind of about what's happened, he would have had to have thought maybe the Sith were coming back. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Once again, they have to be very fine on this because we all love Yoda. He is the most wisdom guy, but they have to be careful with it because I feel like I think what they need to do is give him enough information where he's like, he has an idea of it, but he doesn't know the whole thing. That's why they look at each other, I think.
Yeah.
Because even still then, I don't think they're not sure.
Yeah, there's still a lot of questions. So, DM says, "What a horrible ending to a show." So angry. DM, you'll have to elaborate for us a little bit here. So,
Yeah, we welcome all opinions here. Sure.
we do. Let's see here. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we want to touch on. There's so much to get into. I feel like we're not going to have enough time to get into everything.
I'm trying to think back on the episode.
Fight scene was
Can we
cool.
talk about the daughter, like not the daughters, the sisters together though? Like the way that it did end. Like, did you like that? What, like, how did you feel about it? Because
I think I saw this comment somewhere. I can't remember if I put it on screen or not, but I kind of read them as I'm chatting and stuff. I think it was here. Yeah. Travis says the memory loss scene reminded me of the end of the first Fantastic Beasts or Spider-Man No Way Home. Yeah, I thought of Spider-Man No Way Home as well. I I think it was all right. I did think that was probably one of the more compelling scenes between the sisters was at the end. Just it was a little bit
did you like
emotional.
how they handled it story wise though? Like, did you like how everything happened, or were you still like questioning a lot of things? Because I'm questioning a lot of. I'm more questioning it. I did like it. I felt like it was more compelling, but I'm more questioning it.
I still found here's one loose end that I don't feel like they tied up very well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still finding May's motivations to be a little bit confusing. I think ultimately she just wanted her sister back, and I think that's kind of what, once she find, and I think Travis is the one who kind of pointed this out. She's on a rampage to kill Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
And once she figures out that her sister's alive, nothing really matters at that point anymore to her other than her
and that's what
sister's
I've been
alive.
saying. Like, it's just family to her.
So it seemed weird to me. Like, and then she's like, "You can have what you always wanted, I suppose, by going and getting to train with the stranger, Chimere." So I think May's character is a little bit is confusing to me. Really, I think what it came down to, and it really, I knew this, but it really kind of just came full circle and made sense in my opinion. This was all about OSHA? Really, May was there, but this is really a story about OSHA and the journey that her character is going on. And May is more so is just there to
kind of help the story along.
move the story along in a way, but also I think to really just kind of move the story along. This is really about OSHA, and like I said, I think I knew that, but it kind of made sense.
So my thoughts on it are okay. Speaking to the family part, right? She got what she wanted back. They're at this tree, and basically Chimera says like, "You should come along with me," sort of, or like she offers that,
Mm-hmm.
But she never turns around and says, "Okay, we're back together. You can come along with me." Like that's what she's always wanted, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm sort of once again the motivation is confusing. It's like she got her sister back, but then she leaves her again immediately by the mind wipe thing and all that, and still she stays there. And I'm like, you could have kept it all together, and kept the family all together. Went with Chimere and everything. And then my other question is, the reason I think OSHA is still good is because she doesn't really want to go with Chimera, I don't think, because she offers it, but it seems like she doesn't still even want to do that. least the impression or how the acting was in general. It's like I'll let this if you let May go, I'll go with you. So it's more like a sacrifice play of like I don't really want to go, but in order to help out my sister, I'm going to do this, and it's like
Yeah.
I'm sort of confused with the whole thing. That's kind of why I'm asking.
Yeah, I think it makes more sense, and I think it would make more. I have to go watch it again. I think it does make sense. I don't think that it's bad writing. Um, I think that there was some bad acting, but I don't think it was necessarily bad writing. Because you're right, the sisters leave, just the two of them. They go to the tree and they get caught by the stranger, and he's like, "If I can find you, the Jedi can find you." Um, and they're kind of stuck. And I think ultimately, by going with Chimere, she, like you said, she's like, "I will go with you if you let my sister go," and that was the way of escaping the Jedi, basically. So it is interesting. I think it ended interesting. I have to go watch it again. Um, but overall, I like how they set it up for more stories to come. I would
I do like
definitely,
that, but yeah,
in thinking about a season 2, would you be, I mean, I think I know your answer, but would you be willing to see a season 2?
I don't know.
Or do you think we just leave it at this?
I don't know. I feel like leaving it off at this kind of fuels more speculation of what could happen, and we don't really need necessarily answers at this point. I feel like, although I guess it really, if you want to get down to business, it kind of depends on ratings and everything. But I'm kind of, if they're going to leave it here, I'm kind of satisfied with where it is leaving because then we can kind of connect the dots to everything. We don't necessarily get the Plagueis storyline that we want or like more about information about him necessarily on screen, but I'm satisfied enough to where the last scene of Yoda there, I'm kind of satisfied of like, okay, they're kind of connecting dots a lot. So
I think I would like to see I would like to see more on Plagueis and kind of like go. I would like to see kind of where these things are leading. I don't know if I'd like to see it in an Acolyte season 2. I almost think if they could go and do their own show, some type of a different, with a different name and everything,
yes,
and kind of bring some of these characters in and resolve it through that way. I think that would be cool. I don't know if I would love a season 2 though.
I think what would be more interesting, I don't know how you do this, but do it more through the lenses of Plagueis and possibly Venestra or Yoda, then you could tie in a lot of those gaps because that's kind of those honestly that's more or less the jumping off point that I care about at this point. Those are like the two plots that I really care about. Chimere and Ocean May, like
Yeah.
they're kind of their story is going to be coming to an end at
Yeah.
some point. So it's like,
Well, and it's like you dropped the big names. Well, you didn't really say their names, but you dropped the big characters in there at the end. Just in the episode with Plagueis and Yoda and stuff. And I was like, okay, now we want those people. Who cares about
exactly.
these, other people now? I think that'll be. I like these characters. Like I said, I wouldn't mind to see more stories with them. But I think a lot of people are like, okay, let's move on and see the characters that we're all came here to see, basically. So, um,
Although
Journeyman,
after, sorry, one more point.
sure.
If we're going to connect the story, the only reason I don't want that to happen is because of a Kenobi situation. Even though we don't know a lot about what happened here, other than books and everything, but we don't know much about what happened between here and now, I guess, or here in episode 1,
Mhm.
But just for like continuity's sake and all that, I just don't want like a Kenobi thing to happen where it's like it's really hyped up, really amped, and then it just falls flat on its face. And it's like, yeah, you could have probably left Kenobi in the gutter. Like we really didn't need that. Like
Mhm.
I'm fine with that. Like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we'll see where it goes from here. I tell you what, we're coming up on an hour. I don't know if I'll be able to stream on Thursday. I can't stream on Thursday. I might try to stream on Friday. Otherwise, we'll just maybe pick this back up on Tuesday. This was the last Acolyte reaction stream. And so starting, with next stream or next week, whenever we pick things back up, we're just going to be talking about Star Wars news and kind of what's going on. We'll get Travis back on and get the band back together, so to speak. And we'll maybe we could sum after we have a second viewing of the episode, we can summarize more of our thoughts on the Acolyte, and then, like I said, get into talking about additional Star Wars news and all that good stuff. We have D23 coming up in a few weeks. I did see, which is where they tend to do like a lot of Marvel and potentially even Star Wars announcements and things like that. I did see that Star Wars has kind of been teasing it, and they teased something with Grogu, so maybe we'll get some Mandalorian Grogu news at D23 in a few weeks. But yeah, we'll just talk about Star Wars news and all that good stuff. So like I said, if you're new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I would really appreciate it. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, and we're well on our way there. But yeah, let's go ahead and adjourn, call it there. We'll pick it back up sometime this week. Maybe we just pick it up next week. Who knows? Make sure your notification bell is on so you don't miss a stream ever. But until then, we're going to go ahead and motion to adjourn. May the force be with you always.